Christmas in Wellington-on-Sea sure needed a giant sack full of fixing.
That Christmas. The holidays are upon us once again, and this time, Netflix brought us not just another Christmas movie, but a new animated Christmas movie. I'll admit that the sound of it is pretty exciting. You may remember 5 years prior when Netflix started to release their own animated features, and the first of these was the highly acclaimed 2D animated holiday classic, Klaus. Yes, the platform did create a whole bunch of noteworthy Christmas movies over the years, but none have captured that holiday spirit the same way Klaus did with its unique humor and unforgettable heart. So seeing Netflix Animation delivering another Christmas movie is like watching them going back to their animated roots. This time, however, instead of an original story that presents a new spin to the origins of Santa Claus, That Christmas is an adaptation of the children's book trilogy, That Christmas and Other Stories, which were written by Richard Curtis. That part is honestly interesting because Curtis is a name that is mainly known not as a children's author, but as a writer of rom-coms whose scripts were turned into movies like Four Weddings and a Funeral, Bridget Jones' Diary, Love Actually, which he also directed, Yesterday, and being the co-creator of Mr. Bean. And yes, he did return to his stories and used his writing skills alongside Peter Suter to bring them to life in the animated feature we have today. So now that Netflix will be presenting the holidays with a very British flavor, will we never forget about That Christmas? Or will we never forget about That Christmas? Let's find out. The story. During one particular Christmas, there was a massive snowstorm that caused a lot of problems in the English town of Wellington-on-Sea, or at least added more problems that were already there. The story first looks into the life of Danny, who has to deal with his loneliness fueled by his deadbeat dad that he never sees, and his mom who is always busy with her job at the hospital, all while trying to conquer his shyness to ask out a girl he has a crush on named Sam. Speaking of which, it then goes into Sam's story as she lives with her twin sister Charlie and is always anxious about her rebellious nature if that would put her on Santa's naughty list. Then it partly goes back to Danny as we also look into the life of Miss Trapper, the strict school teacher who starts to grow an emotional bond with the boy as a way to help with her own loneliness. Then it jumps to a group of kids living together as they celebrate Christmas their own way to avoid the dull traditions they grew out of, and then it jumps to those parents who were out for a wedding, but some circumstances like the storm caused them to be stuck in a bad situation.
Mum, what happened to your hair?
Yes, it's nothing.
Did you get all that? If not, then I honestly don't blame you. Because just by describing the plot, it already highlights the movie's biggest problem. It doesn't really have a story, but rather has numerous side plots that it continuously juggles throughout the film, always shifting its attention from one narrative to the next. Because of this, it doesn't take any time to settle itself down to let those stories flow naturally. Its priority is to tell all these stories in a short amount of time, giving out this frantic tone of trying to make the viewer take note of so much that is going on without the time to make an emotional connection with any of its characters or their situations. It's funny because considering that they were released around the same time, it reminds me of the problem with Disney's Moana 2 with how its plot feels like it's so compact to make it around 80 to 90 minutes that it values to throw out the large quantity of ideas that it has instead of the quality of its storytelling.
I am the feeblest human alive.
And like Moana 2, I feel like this would have worked much better as a limited series where each episode focused on those individual stories to have them stand on their own and help highlight its overall themes. But instead, we're stuck with a movie that doesn't know if it wants to give these stories a strong connection to create a bigger picture or be an anthology to tell separate tales with a similar subject.
Oh, interesting challenge.
Sans, you won't get all those sacks down the chimney in one go.
I've been doing this a long time, my grumpy friend.
But while the storytelling itself is very messy, I'll give it that I do see potential in some of these stories. I won't say that all of them are good, but they can vary from being forgettable to pretty heartfelt. At best, some like Danny's plotline can capture the holiday spirit with a message of how it's best to not be alone for Christmas. And as it tries to get some time from all the other narratives, there are attempts to show its emotional core and have a nice discussion about togetherness. That Christmas does have an idea and it has something to say related to the holidays, but it has too many plot lines and characters to handle in order to properly do so.
But if you feel alone and unloved, the magnifier gets to work and makes all those bad things bigger.
I know that there can be a lot of stories to tell during Christmas, and some can be very sweet, but maybe it's best that we don't tell them all at the same time. The animation. Even though this movie is found on Netflix, That Christmas marks the return of the studio Locksmith Animation in collaboration with D-Neg Animation, who previously made their debut with the 2021 film Ron's Gone Wrong, and is planned to produce a bunch of movies for Warner Brothers. And for the work they did on this movie, I think it's pretty good. Nothing extraordinary, but what the team executed is very nice. What they were able to capture with the overall look is the town itself. To have it not just feel like a living and functioning British community, but also allow the environment to help describe the characters' personalities and their situations through the unique details that they implement in each of the households. Some can give out that air of solitude that they want to fill it with some company. Some can present the contrast of the people in one of the stories, and some, even if there are different personalities, show how they can work together under one roof.
Do we have a vision for the future that is better and brighter and always more fun? Yes!
And with the characters themselves, they share a similar design to what the studio previously did with Ron's Gone Wrong. Their features are more rounded to give them a friendlier approach for the younger viewers, but still able to give each character unique features to make them distinct from one another. Even their movements are pretty good, where they remain down to earth, yet mainly use their faces to express their emotions. Sometimes they'll go and say how they feel, but generally, the animators do most of the acting to help sell the scenes more to present what's going on. But if I have to point out the visual highlight of the picture, it has to be with Santa, where the film gets creative with his lore, with the way he delivers presents to kids with his own magic, and how he uses modern technology to navigate his way around the world. It's like a nice combination of magic and tech to deliver an updated Santa that feels fresh and familiar.
Oh no, I thought getting here was a hard part. But it turns out we've got a town full of problems.
You can say that again.
However, there is something about it that does bother me in this movie. Now, hear me out on this, because I know this is going to sound very weird as a criticism, but there are times when I question, why does it need to be an animated film? While part of it is because the visuals, while well made, look safe and doesn't have much to memorably stand out on its own, but it's more that it doesn't do much that requires this story to be told in animation. Yes, some could argue that the scenes with Santa flying around on his sleigh and delivering presents, and the turkeys having their cartoony moments do justify the need to have this be animated, but those are very far and few between. The rest are just small slice-of-life stories that could easily be told in live action. And I know there's been a bunch of animes that stick to slice-of-life realism, but my point is that I feel like it doesn't try enough to merit the use of the medium, which is why I don't feel like there's anything that's special about it, especially when it doesn't have any artistic twist that could stylistically enhance the story. Why have a talented team of animators to make the film when you're not using their full creative potential and just want to play it safe to the point that the look could easily be changed to live action and the experience would not make a difference whatsoever?
Told ya.
Chances are, if you do watch this movie, the animation may not be among the things you'll remember the most from it. However, I will give credit where credit is due, and in terms of the animation itself, it is still a very nice looking picture, even if it's more on the safe side. The characters. Even when it only has a short amount of time as a movie, That Christmas wants to showcase an entire town's worth of people. And with a large quantity in the cast, it's not only hard to keep up with their stories, but they each also don't have enough time to showcase their personalities. And with its disorienting storytelling, with how it constantly jumps from one plot to the next, it leaves the viewer to always be in a constant state of refreshing their memory to know what is going on in each narrative and remind themselves of who they are. Also, I'm not really a fan with the way that it depicts some of the kids. They honestly give me the impression that they're how boomers see Gen Z and Gen Alpha, where it's like it's satirizing the way that the youth is more openly concerned about social issues like climate change and representation, and try to awkwardly use that as jokes.
He'd want a strictly vegetarian, multicultural fun fest with lots of pop songs and stuff about climate change.
The best that I could say about them is that the movie does have a solid voice cast. Sure, the materials they had to work with are weak, but they were able to make the most out of them to make their personalities shine. Sure, you have the familiar names in there to have people come watch this, like Brian Cox and Bill Nighy, but my personal favorites are Zazie Hayhurst and Sienna Sayer as Sam and Charlie respectively, using their personalities to help differentiate the twins.
I imagine this rather made their day. Well, yes, nice for the turkeys, but Santa's now definitely not coming to you.
But with the limited time that they have, the characters are mostly one note, where you have Danny as the shy and lonely kid who finds himself alongside Miss Trapper, who is feared for her threatening discipline, but is also lonely. And while his mom is often away at work, she's the only family he has, and she does wish that she could spend more time with her son during the holidays. Then there's Sam, who is always anxious for her and her sister to do good, while Charlie is the rebellious prankster who does care for Sam, even if she has a funny way of showing it. After that, there's Bernie, the eldest of the kids in the barn that wants to change up the old Christmas traditions, and the parents who are stuck in their Volkswagen Type 2 with one that's naive, one being pessimistic, one that acts snobbish, and so on.
Yeah, but then it wouldn't have been a surprise, would it? Surprise!
Oh, it was nicely wrapped, at least, wasn't it?
Man is a moron, and there's no getting around it.
But of course, I can't forget that Santa is in the film as well, where the blizzard caused him to be down to just one reindeer, which is Dasher flying the sleigh, but is still persistent to keep doing his job. His main role in the film is to be the narrator who pops up at times to comment on the character's situations, while having a few comedic moments with Dasher, who tries to be like the British version of Marty from Madagascar.
I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a tiny bit of a blizzard going on here.
Nonsense! It's just a light breeze!
As you probably noticed before, I was getting a bit tired of listing all the characters in the film and started skipping a few. I was feeling the same way when watching the film, when the more characters they keep bringing in to share their story, the more tiring they become, to the point that I stopped caring about some of them, like with the parents in the van. If they don't have an interesting emotional core or a good personality that's fun to see them in action, then their time feels meaningless to me. I'm sorry if that sounds mean, but when a movie values quantity over quality with its characters like this, then there will be some that I'll feel like have no value.
Huh?
Right, God hates me, and that's official.
I'll give it that there are a few characters that I do enjoy. Even with the small amount of time that they are present, they add a bit of charm to the experience, along with the actors enhancing their personalities. However, for a family film like this, it just feels unnecessary to get to know everyone in Wellington-on-Sea. That wasn't a bad Christmas, but I highly doubt if I'll remember this one. That Christmas is an okay but dysfunctional animated feature that wanted to tell so many stories about the people of this small English town, but didn't have enough time to make them feel worthwhile. The writing focused too much on showcasing all these stories at once that it makes the storytelling disorienting with the way it keeps jumping from one plot to the next, while the characters remain flat and a lot of them feel pointless. Then again, it's not a complete lost cause, as it still provided nice animation, some of the heart does shine to make it a bit touching, and I'll even add that the score by John Powell is lovely to listen to for that extra sense of that holiday spirit. I don't think that there will be many who will have this be part of their traditional holiday movies to watch, and I'd personally rather check out Arthur Christmas if I want to have a nice British animated Christmas movie, but it is relatively harmless, and if you want to put on a Christmas movie to keep the kids entertained, then this will do the job just fine. And if this did the job to entertain you, then how about giving this review a like and subscribe to my channel? And if you'd like to support what I do, then join my Patreon and get some extra presents for either yourself or someone who'd love it. I know a lot happened during that Christmas, but it's one of those that, for me, just came and went, and I'll see if maybe the next Christmas will be better.
Happy Christmas to all, and to all, a good night.
Who are you talking to?